Is this working? Okay. Well, welcome to the quarterly meeting of the Club Council. Our purpose is to provide an opportunity for the club leaders to interact with management and management to tell us our place. To bring us up to speed. So today we're going to turn this over to Christelle and her team, who are going to focus first on the AV and Zoom areas, and then open up to a batch of questions. And then we have a couple of comments from the audience. Christelle, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So Colin has a PowerPoint that we're going to be sharing, and Colin, Anita, and I will both be, or all three be doing the PowerPoint discussion. So I will lead off with Colin, and he'll be talking about the Zoom rooms. And so while Colin's getting set up, I just wanted to let everyone know, if you have not heard, that our facility manager, Bill Wells, has resigned. And we are actively looking for a replacement. We have some good candidates have submitted resumes, and we will be doing interviews in the next week or two. So hoping to get that filled pretty quickly. But for the time being, myself and Dawn and Gil, who is the maintenance lead, are kind of picking up where we can. And then Colin is picking up the AV piece and anything to do with that side of things. So just to keep everybody updated. You ready, Colin? All right, all yours.
Hello, there we go. All right, thank you all for coming out today. Really appreciate your interest and whatnot, and looking forward to talking about Zoom rooms and events. So this presentation that we're about to give is kind of split up in that fashion. We're going to start off by going kind of in depth, slow down a little bit, slow down for all y'all there. We'll be going in depth on Zoom rooms, going over a few different aspects, and then talking about events generally. So let's go ahead and jump into Zoom rooms. And when we're talking about Zoom rooms, the first subject that I think is worth mentioning is that Zoom rooms really streamlines the process. Now, I should highlight, just in case everyone here is not familiar with the terminology, up until about a month and a half ago, all of the hybrid meetings at OVA were held with the standard Zoom application. This is probably what you all use at your homes or on your personal laptops or phones, even when you're joining a Zoom meeting. And about a month ago, OVA took the step forward into using Zoom rooms, which is a version of Zoom that can be configured with the audio-visual equipment in any given facility, so as to streamline the process of having a Zoom meeting. And that's what we're going to talk about first. So when it comes to streamlining the process, there are the first thing that I think is worth mentioning is the difference in the equipment needed. Now, anybody here who has done a Zoom hybrid meeting in our Burger or East Rec Center will be familiar with the mouse and keyboard that has previously been necessary to turn on Zoom, enter in your meeting ID, claim host, enter in your passcode, and a flurry of other steps that sometimes would be rather cumbersome and complicated. But moving forward with Zoom rooms, there is no longer a need to use the mouse and keyboard. There is an iPad in both the Burger and the East Rec Center, and also our third Zoom room, the Aspen Conference Room, which we'll talk about a little later, that can control every aspect of the meeting. And in this way, you don't need to kind of fumble with an unwieldy mouse and keyboard on your lap and with the mouse on the chair next to you in order to host your meeting. You can control the meeting from anywhere in the room, despite your distance from the AV rack, with the Wi-Fi, over the Wi-Fi more rather, with the iPad. The other aspect of streamlining the process is eliminating the number of steps needed to start your meeting. So previously, when using the standard Zoom application, there were about 12 steps needed to start your meeting, whereas with Zoom rooms, there are only about 4. Those steps are kind of put out in detail on this slide. And what we're looking at right now are the steps to start a Zoom meeting on the previous standard Zoom application. That always involves turning on the AV rack. That's in this facility, going to be over there to my left, your right. Picking up the facility's mouse and keyboard, as was just mentioned, locating the Zoom Room app on the computer, wherever that might be, double clicking it, opening it, and then doing potentially two different things, whether or not the app was signed in, then you enter in your meeting ID, you click join again, you enter in your passcode, you click 5 or 6 more buttons, you double check that the microphone and the speaker are actually on the right settings. And finally, you go into the participants pane and claim host. So a lot of steps. Those are the 12 steps. You could probably look at that as even more steps, depending on how you spliced them up and broke them down. When you're dealing with Zoom Rooms, the steps are a lot more straightforward. You still come into the facility, you turn on the AV rack, you pick up the facility's iPad, and you start your meeting. Done. And when we talk about starting your meeting, literally, you open up the iPad, you see your meeting, and you press a button that says start. And we found with the groups that are currently using Zoom Rooms, this has really alleviated a lot of the frustration or the challenges that were experienced when they are starting their meetings up. They don't need quite as much assistance, and it's a bit more of a stress-free process. The other aspect of Zoom Rooms that we liked and why we brought it into our facilities is consistency. So coming back to these instructions that we were looking at before, one major part of the previous method for starting a meeting were the variables involved. So if we kind of look at the text that is darkened there a little bit, these represent steps that are different depending on a variable. So if the Zoom app on the desktop was signed in, then you would click join a meeting. But if it wasn't signed in, then you might click join. 2 different buttons with 2 different wordings on it, but to get to the same place. Likewise, when you would go into a Zoom meeting previously, it was often necessary to double check that the microphone and the speaker were on the correct settings. So we've had a few incidents. I know Charlene back there is nodding her head because Lifelong Learning's had a few incidences where they recorded a meeting and no audio was captured because the people on Zoom weren't actually hearing anything in the meeting because the wrong microphone was selected. In Zoom Rooms, it's not possible for the wrong microphone to be selected because it cannot be changed from the correct microphone because it's baked into the configurations that we have deployed when we first set up the room. So it eliminates that kind of inconsistency or inconsistent experience that people had previously. And lastly, when we're talking about our reasons for why we moved into Zoom Rooms, it avoids conflicts. I think a lot of people in this room who have done Zoom meetings through OVA's Zoom account have had at least one experience where they were in a meeting and it abruptly ended because somebody ended their meeting because they had a meeting scheduled on the same license and maybe they started their meeting early, or maybe your meeting ran a little too late, or maybe somebody just wanted to make sure the link worked. and so you got kicked out of your meeting as a result. That is not possible with Zoom Rooms. And the reason, real briefly, is because the license is assigned to the room itself. So for somebody to interrupt your meeting, they would actually have to walk into the room and interrupt your meeting. They can't do it just over Zoom because again, the license is assigned to the hardware that is in this space. We're doing a Zoom meeting right now over Zoom Rooms. And I like this little comic here. You got a Snoopy interrupting the board meeting, which I thought was relevant for our community. So moving forward here, Christelle, I'm not sure if you want to speak on this one a little bit, but we're just talking about the staff and their involvement. You want me to take it? Perfect. So Zoom Rooms is a lot easier to troubleshoot as well. And that is because of the streamlined process. Previously, if you think about the steps that were needed before to start a Zoom meeting, you had to make sure you had your meeting ID, that the microphone was on the right setting, that this, that, everything you've heard me list multiple times so far. Well, likewise, that is what the troubleshooting procedure was for staff. They had to make sure you had the right meeting ID. They had to make sure that you were on the right microphone, on the right camera, all these different things that to any staff member, including myself being the IT coordinator, can be overwhelming or prone to error. It's probably a good way when you're in the moment trying to assist an event to get started. Now with Zoom Rooms, the only real troubleshooting that is needed or step that can be taken to kind of reset a Zoom room is to reboot the whole computer. And when you reboot the computer that Zoom Rooms is hosted on, there's no need to log in. The computer automatically logs into the Zoom Rooms account. There's no need to open Zoom. Zoom automatically launches on that computer once it's restarted. So it's really streamlined the troubleshooting procedure for our staff as well. And just on there, you can see we've got some contact information should you ever need to grab the staff. The admin office is covered up by the closed captions if you're here in the East Rec, but that's 707-539-1611. So moving forward, when it comes to staff assistance, another really good way to help staff help you is to kind of plan ahead. I'm going to go ahead and pass the microphone to Anita because what we're talking about here is the room setup.
So when you are requesting for Zoom rooms through me, I need for you to either email me or call me personally or come into the office and request it. And then when you are actually requesting for your meeting, say your meeting's November 19th, and you turn in your diagram, but then you forgot to tell me you needed Zoom. So I need to make sure that either, just to make sure that you request that I also assign you to a Zoom room as well. And yes, and if you forget, please let me know 3 days prior to your event to request that so that we make sure it's in place. Okay.
And one thing that's important to mention, it's not required that you use OVA's Zoom account in order to use one of our Zoom rooms. You can schedule the meeting in your own account, but you still need to tell Anita if you plan to use Zoom in one of the spaces, and mainly so that we can make sure the iPad that is used to control Zoom rooms is made available to your event. That's the main reason. So even if you're using your own account, please make sure to request that through Anita so that on the setup form, she can make sure all the equipment, this iPad, is available. And yeah, please do.
Sorry. And also when it comes to Zoom rooms, we are requesting that you, when able to, we would prefer that you use Zoom rooms. And that is because it's much more easier and efficient for the staff to go in and troubleshoot. If you have your own Zoom meeting set up under your own Zoom account, then we are going to ask that you have a AV training prior to your event. If not, we will not always be necessarily able to run over and help assist. It takes a lot of time, and our staff, besides Colin, is not as IT savvy as is Colin and some of the other members that we have here. So they are not able to troubleshoot your own computer, and really they shouldn't be touching your computer for liability reasons. So that is another reason why it's a big ask to use the Zoom Rooms account and ensure that you're doing that through Anita so she can have it set up correctly for you.
All right. And so everything that we just talked about is documented on the website. And as my little documentation here, it's not quite that long, I promise. So if you were to head over to the website, there's a special page, which is not necessarily, these documents are available on the docs page as well, but there's a page called oakmontvillage.com/how-to. And this is one that I kind of direct our more techie residents towards. And it includes the instructions for Zoom Rooms, just added very recently, specific to Zoom Rooms, and an update to the audiovisual guide, which includes information on every aspect of our audiovisual system, the DVD player, the Solstice pods, which are hopefully discontinued soon, and every other thing that you can have access to through the AV system. So check that out, oakmontvillage.com/how-to. The documentation is available there, and hard copies of this documentation are available at both the East, at this facility here. It's actually in the bottom drawer of the AV rack, at the Burger Center on a little document slot that sits on the wall next to the AV rack, and in our Aspen conference room, which is a room within the OVA admin office where we also have Zoom Rooms available. And there is a documentation hard copy available there too. So you can print it if you like, but when you're coming down to the facility, we have the hard copies here for you.
So I think that's the end of Zoom Rooms, right? So do we want, George, do you want to ask questions about that piece of it before we move on to the next topic? Yeah. Okay. Let me hear.
haven't quite seen the how-tos, but typically those kind of are hard to kind of get to while you're trying to do something. If, do you have any video tutorials? Sometimes they're very useful. If you just have a short video, 2-minute long video, especially about using that machine over there. Occasionally I kind of forget if I've not been used it for some time, I just forget to press the right button. So if you can create a short video on that, that I can just access on my phone or whatever in the how-to area, that's easy to kind of follow along step by step.
Just to answer that question. So when we're talking about how-to videos that are available on the website, there is about, I think it's like a 4.5, pretty short 4.5-minute video on how to operate the cameras that are available in our facilities. That's actually on this page. And you can see it kind of underneath maybe I can go back one thing. There we go. Video conferencing camera overview. We do have a video on like how to claim host as well. That was kind of uploaded to the website back when we were just starting Zoom, and claiming host was one of our first challenges. But we will note that down, and I will put that on my to-do list for a Zoom Rooms specific video. Look for it soon in the e-blast.
And don't forget, if you feel uncomfortable or you need a refresher, if you schedule a time prior to your event with Anita, she will get you connected with Colin or someone from the maintenance side of things that is trained, which eventually all of them will be trained and we've started the training. We will set you up with them to go over a refresher before your event, so you're not having to rush through and try to figure it out under pressure.
Any more questions? Yes, please. Let me,
The Aspen conference room available when the OVA office is closed?
It is not. No, the OVA office, because there are some confidential documents in the OVA office, we do have to keep it locked after the staff leaves. I believe that's our main reason on it. So it is, the Aspen conference room is only available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
But we are working on other smaller rooms having the same capability. So if ever that's a need, we're working on that.
So if I go to oakmontvillage.com and hit the magnifying glass, can I put in the words "how to" and be taken to that page? Would you do that now? I want, because if it's not available, I've used the search and not been able to find things that I'm looking for, because it doesn't seem like there are tags or keywords to many things. And it would be nice to have that on a main page, like under members or events, facilities. There could be several different places that it would be placed in a drop-down menu.
And maybe we'll put it in all those places. Yeah, I'll take that into consideration. And I do believe if you search "how to," it should pop up. Certainly the latest article on how to use Zoom Rooms, but I'll double check on that today. Any more questions? We have questions on Zoom. Let's go ahead. One moment while I use the Zoom Room Controller iPad app to look up these questions. And it looks like Bern Lefson has his hand raised. So let me go ahead. And Bern, if you unmute your microphone, I do believe you should be able to speak.
Will the Zoom rooms enable us, as we have had in the past, to either have a guest Zoom speaker during a live meeting, or I should say, can we have combinations of Zoom attendees and a live meeting at the same time?
Yes, absolutely you can. As a matter of fact, the Zoom Rooms really does make it a lot easier to have somebody remotely join your meeting. Just in general, I don't need to get into all the technicalities, I suppose, but yes, to answer your question on both fronts, you can definitely have meetings where everybody who's there is not in the room or in the room. I suppose you'd probably need one person in the room just to operate the iPad and whatnot. But yes, those are both possible.
Thank you.
Of course.
And to go back to Jane's question, I was able to go on. I know you're on the slide, Colin, so you couldn't. And I did punch in "how to," and it did pull it up right away. Yeah. Yes. but the how to use Zoom rooms. And I can tell you that right now, we probably will not be adding a lot to the website because we will be going through a website redesign soon. We have hired a communications person that will be starting the 28th. So they'll be working very closely with the communications committee, and then eventually they will be working on the website. So those things will we'll work on that.
So who is the communications committee? Are those the people for Oakmont News and eBlast?
Yes, so communications committee is, yep, that's exactly right. Jackie Ryan, Jim Brewer, there is Marty Thompson, and
And
then
there's
some other.
nobody from AV. See, that's the problem.
What do you
Eh,
mean there's no one from AV?
Those people do not run AV in Oakmont.
What? I'm not
George
sure.
runs about 89 classes or
I'm talking about
subjected-
the website though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm talking about the website, making it usable for people who use it.
Uh-huh.
And communications committee does a great
No,
job
but we-
editing
Yes. Uh-huh.
For grammar,
Mhm.
spelling, punctuation, well
But the
put
web
together
designer,
sentences.
we are hiring a web designer that does have that background, and they have worked in many adult communities. And so they will ensure that it's user friendly. And then as time goes on, we will get input from those people that we feel like should have some input.
See, because that was the problem with PCD. When they came here, they are very, very well versed. But this is a community with certain needs.
Exactly. Yes.
And it would be good
Mhm.
to start from the beginning. It will cost less if the people who are very involved
Mhm.
with AV, I put on 89 events a year. George puts on over
Yes. And
75 a year.
I don't disagree with you. And I agree that you and George and probably Jeff Newman are very tech savvy, but we have people who are not. And so we have to think about them being able to use it as well.
That's what I'm thinking
So,
of, because
yes.
the tech
So we will
people
have-
speak geek, and
Yes.
we, George, myself,
Mhm.
and
Yes. So we will
we
involve,
translate.
we will involve those people as necessary. Yes.
Not sure about the design process, but at some point before they go too far, can they have an open meeting, open forum to kind of present design and get feedback from the community? I mean, frankly, I have some serious questions and concerns about the website. I use other websites in other places I
Mhm.
live in New York and Manhattan and so on and so forth. So much
Yes.
easier to use for so many other things. And so I think that's something that really you need to take us into account. We're the users.
So when it comes to any kind of issues using the website, and you may have seen this in an e-blast a couple of times back, we've shared it a few times in the e-blast, we have a website issues reporting form. And I really highly encourage everyone to use that. If you're having a specific issue on the website or even a general issue, you can go to oakmontvillage.com/report. That'll take you straight to the form. And it's also linked at the bottom of every page on the website. If you go to the Contact Us page, that also takes you to the form. And that'll help us as we work with the designer down the line. Sorry, Anita, I didn't realize I'm standing right in front of there. And so that'll assist us in kind of having that information available. You know, we certainly, I certainly am very interested in some kind of a meeting where we discuss that. But I think at the late hours of the night when you're using the website are probably where most of those issues are going to come to mind. So report them the second you think of them, and just keep on reporting them. You can't report too much. Even if it's, wrong or something, don't be afraid of that. We want all the input we can get.
I think the discussion, if I may, I'm going to hook on to Jane's and Maher's comments. I think the discussion is not so much about running into like a problem. I think it has to do more with two fundamental issues in design. One is the need to have the key participants involved in the design element before it's done. Okay, so that things don't appear that are surprises. Okay, I really like the change you've done with the Zoom rooms, but because of the way in which it was done in the communications around it, more than one of us has had a problem using a Zoom room that we had not expected to have because we thought it would be easier. Okay, the second element, and just to echo Mahir's, and I think this is going through a number of the comments on Oakmont 2030, is that the issue is not so much that this website is having a particular problem or particular design. The issue tends to be more that there are websites more designed for the senior communities like Oakmont to allow people who have less technical skill a much easier time to get information they need. Okay. And I was sort of smiling before this meeting because I was telling Jeff about how to find out what was going on in a particular room using the website, as he particularly in his very skilled background had no idea that there was any way to find out what was going on in Berger as distinct from the other rooms. So there's a lot that's in the website that's very rich, but it's not set up in an easy way for those of us who are getting elderly to find.
One quick comment. The easiest thing, for example, is scheduling. We can't access scheduling, automatically. That's one. A second thing is this business of trying to find out what what events the clubs are doing on a certain day, or what are all the possible events that a single club is doing. So if you were to search, we don't have any search function for club activities and on a daily basis or any particular day basis, so on, like you'd have at a concert hall or whatever.
I'll address that question a little bit as I grab the mic and ask if anybody else has any questions. Please just raise your hand. I'll bring it over to you. But on the subject of searching events on the website, I'm not seeing any raised hands. Anybody? No? Okay. We do have all of the events listed on the website in two different ways. The events that are submitted for announcements, say to be in the Oakmont newspaper and the e-blast, are all listed on the website in two places. One of them is emailed to you every week, every Tuesday morning. And that page includes all of the events that have been submitted for publication. And beneath that list is the website calendar, which we're going to be touching on in a little bit more detail here. So I'm not going to delve into that subject right now, because you'll be seeing a little demonstration on it in a moment. Do we have any more questions, though, before we? Yes, Bonnie, please. There you go.
I teach a class over at the West Rec, and I don't see anything up here that talks about the West Rec. There's a sound system, there's no visual, and there's now Bluetooth that many people don't know how to use, can't connect it to their phones or their things. And I just wonder if, and there's also been a Wi-Fi issue in there. Yeah, no Wi-Fi as of the other day. But so I'm just wondering if that's going to be also brought up to this level of being able to do Zoom, if people do want to use it, maybe Upper West at least, or if there's anything to update the sound systems to make them more user friendly now that they're kind of piecemeal getting updated.
Well, whether or not we update the West Rec Center in the same way, say that we've updated the East, I think is probably a larger discussion. I'm not sure where the next space will be that we kind of make audio visual upgrades. Just real quickly, I was up at the West very recently using the Wi-Fi. We used it for the voting centers that were in there yesterday. So I'll double check on that. Yeah, maybe it's back on. The Bluetooth also, I have to give credit to Gildardo on our maintenance team. I believe I'm correct. That was actually a solution to a problem that we were experiencing with people being able to connect to the audio system there with kind of the old inputs that were available. And so he actually took the initiative to purchase that Bluetooth connector, which converts the signal into it. Yeah, it's working pretty good. Excellent, excellent. But yeah, I really can't speak to the West Rec. I'm not sure, Christelle, do you have any thoughts, plans?
So I know Bill, our last chair meeting, committee or club chair meeting we had, that was something that we talked about with Bill, and we were going from facility to facility. I will have to follow up to see where he left off on that, but that is something we were looking at upgrading. So yes, I will follow up and make sure, but yes, that is on our radar for sure, because I know it's dated.
I don't think so. I think I just left Burn spotlit here in Zoom rooms. Apologies, Burn. Any more questions? I'm looking at Zoom. I don't see any hands raised, any in the room, and just questions on Zoom mainly. We are going to move into the events side of the presentation in a second. All right, let's move forward. So, oh, you already saw that. Events, supplies, and space. And this is mainly, I don't know if you want to take most of these. I can speak to it however you like, though. Room availability. So do you want to talk about the website calendar at all? Yeah, for sure. Well, so if you go to oakmontvillage.com/events, and likewise, if you were to go to oakmontvillage.com/inside, where the eBlast is, we have the events calendar present. Now, an important thing to understand about that calendar is that it is generated straight from Anita's event scheduling software. So these are not posts that we are typing into the website. They are pulling straight from the events that are scheduled. As soon as it's scheduled, it's on the website, as long as it's a publicly shared event. And we're going to talk about what's public and what's private in just a slide or two here. But when you're looking at that website calendar, it allows you to look at the events in a day view. So if you just want to see all the events that are happening on any given day, a month view, if you'd like the more traditional kind of grid calendar that people are more familiar with, and we'll be showing that in just a second, or the agenda/event view, which just shows all of the events that are happening in chronological order, not necessarily specific to the day or week or month. You can also filter by location, which we'll be demonstrating in just a moment. And you can submit a request for any open spaces that you see on the calendar, right on the calendar page, which we'll also be demonstrating. So speaking of those demonstrations, this video is going to play on a loop behind us while we kind of talk about how it all works. Is it playing? I don't think it's playing. There it is. So you want to speak to this one at all, or? Seeing the events calendar here in a second. There we are.
It goes, right?
Yes.
Get to it. Oh, it's coming down to the calendar itself here. As you notice, we have up the right-hand corner, the day, month, and agenda by event. So right here we have day, and it will bring the day events that are happening within the community on the, is it going to give it a, yeah, usually it'll give, yes. So we have a month view calendar. It shows you what's going on in each facility. As you notice here, really super long. Yes, definitely. And you also can actually hover over the information for each club. It will give you information about the club, their website, if they have a website link, when they meet, what time and location as well. You can do it on that calendar part there. The agenda, it breaks it down into, you know, the week. Like today, I'll show you what's going on in each facility. It has a WR or CAC or, you know, the OVA office. You also can see it by events as well. And we're waiting for it to upload here. And this is just by their photo of their club when they meet. Also, you can hover, you can click on it. Will take you directly to their, you know, information, and of course their link to their website as well.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's not demonstrated in the video you just watched, but as you look at those different events that are in the calendar, you can click on them for more information. And do we want to take a question or two here at the moment? Yeah, we can take a question while this video rolls. Here, Joan.
To just give you a practical example, on my calendar, I had this meeting on Thursday and Wednesday, and I wanted to check which was the correct date. I had it 2 different dates on 2 different calendars. And I went through here and I don't see this meeting on the 9th.
Take a
Are
look.
you-
We're
go
coming
ahead.
up to that part right now.
So did I just miss it? I mean,
Are
my phone
you-
looks different than what we're looking at up there, but.
Couple points there. I can't quite tell from the video that we have looping whether or not it's in the calendar, if it was your mistake or if maybe we didn't add it to the calendar. That is possible. There are some events, and we're going to talk about this just a moment, that are not listed in the calendar. And there are some reasons for that. But in regards to how it looks on different devices, you know, it is a month calendar view that we're looking at right now. Let's go ahead and play the video again. And a month calendar view can become rather, how would you say, not aesthetically pleasing when you're looking at it on the website. And that is due to the amount of events that might be happening in any given date within the calendar. So the month view serves its purpose, but certainly in terms of aesthetics, it's not always the best option, particularly if you're on a phone, and looking at it kind of crunched together that way.
Mine's much cuter than that.
And I can see from here that you are on the event view, and that's going to be the last one kind of demonstrated in this looping video here, which I would say is much more advantageous to be using on a mobile device. But if you do find that an event that you think should be listed in the calendar is not listed on the calendar, please report that to the office. We have certain events that we don't list on the calendar, which again, we'll be going into more detail on, but Anita can change an event to be publicly listed on the calendar with the click of a button. So let us know if this calendar is something that we rolled out about 6 months ago now, so it's been a little while. But if there are, just like anything else, just communicate with us and we will act. We will act on anything that you report to us. Any other questions before we move on to the next calendar demonstration? Yes, please.
If you want to know how many times pickleball is available during a month, can you sort it that way?
You can filter it, but you cannot filter by group, I don't believe yet.
See, because that's why
sorry.
the calendar is so useless. I wanted to know when pickleball was meeting other than the day that I looked at, and I had no way of knowing without going through that horrendous, stupid list. So that really is not very helpful.
Oh, the pickleball court is a location. Thank you, George. So I suppose it is possible to filter down to just the pickleball court. Am I incorrect or correct about it? You guys see it in there? We have our team doing a test right now on the website's calendar. So it does appear that you can check off the pickleball court. And I think that is a perfect segue into our next slide. So the next slide here, and I'll come grab that microphone, demonstrates how to filter events in the calendar. So what we're looking at now is the calendar being switched to month view. And I did this demonstration this way because of an inquiry I got from Howard Sidorsky. If you're out there watching, shout out to Howard. And he asked me, how can I see all of the events that are happening in the Burger Center on a Monday? And so what we're looking at in this calendar view here is the Burger Center having been checked off in the filters and the month view, effectively allowing you to look at all of the events happening in the Burger Center on any specific day of the week. So it is possible to filter the calendar down in that way. And my apologies, I was incorrect before. You can filter the pickleball specifically just because that club happens to have a facility, if you will, that's specific to them. Now, you may not necessarily be able to filter down all the times that Kiwanis is meeting, as an example, because we don't have that built in yet, but that is something that we're looking towards. The scheduling system that Anita is using right now allows us to do a certain amount of tagging and categorizing of events. And we are looking at, whether or not we can apply the groups as one of those tags that you could then filter. Right now, we've just focused on filtering specifically by location. So that's what we're kind of watching in a loop here. Any other questions on that front? And Anita, I don't know if you want to, I'm talking a lot here. If you...
Oh, definitely. I also wanted to talk about, is it the next thing coming up on this? The submit event request.
Forward here.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for it. So if you are unable to contact me or email me and you feel like that you rather just go through the event calendar, you're more than welcome to. You would just hit the submit event request. You will put in your information into, is it gonna? Oh, okay, so basically what it does is it asks you for your name, your email, your club. It also asks you the date that you want the event to be. You'll pick the date and then you'll pick the location, and then you'll hit if you are a recognized club or if it's a private event, you pick one of those and then you put down, and there's a little at the bottom, it's a little code that you put in and you hit enter. Then it will come back and then we'll let you know if that facility is available at that time that you are choosing to have your event. And it will let you know, have a little warning sign. It'll tell you no, and you can click on the warning sign and it'll tell you why you can't have that slot. It will say say for instance, Oakmont Lifelong Learning pops up, and that's the reason why you can't have that slot is because it's already been scheduled. So then you can hit the back button and you can go back and you can select another location if you want to, or a different date. Once you select it and it is okay to schedule in that facility, then it will be submitted to me. Then I will view it and I'll look, and then I'll hit okay, and then you'll get a response, confirmation back to you stating that it's been approved.
So another way to kind of evaluate what's open, submit your event for whatever times you see open in the calendar, and conflicts will be identified. So yeah, there we go. Last note on the calendar, you've heard me reference this. Can I do this one first? Is that all right? And so what's public and what's private? So as of right now, the kind of different types of events that we've been marking public and private are listed here. Do you want to speak to it at all?
Definitely. So you can only view public events like clubs, committees, and board meetings. You cannot view private events, which is sub HOAs, birthday parties, celebration of life, and etc. So those do not get submitted into the calendar at all whatsoever. And so those you will not be able to see on the public calendar at all. So if you go to want to schedule something and then it comes back, no, it will, tell you it's unavailable, but there won't be anything there. So.
Just in case you see an open space and you get that rejection through the submission form. That's why. George, please.
Is there some reason you could not, in fact, just put a dummy in that space that was labeled, space taken?
As of right now, we have looked at listing things in the public calendar without all of their details, as an example. And it's not possible with the calendar the way it is right now. I don't want to get too off into the technical weeds, but the calendar that we're using does have an open.
Consider that instead to be a request.
Sure.
Okay.
But just to finish that thought, the calendar that we're working with right now does have an open API, which allows us to develop on the calendar in a really wide, broad, series of configurations and customizations that we can make, but it probably would require some development, some coding, if you will. So definitely something that we are looking into, but just not available right now.
Anita, if I follow your process here, and I think that I have found a spot, but I think I have found like 3 spots. If you follow me, can I come in and say, can you tell me which one of these 3 is in fact available?
Yes, you can. Yes.
Okay.
You can call me.
Save you a trip. George, to go back to what you just said, that is something that I am requesting happen, is at least showing people that it's a not available spot. That was one of my pet peeves when we started talking about this a while back. I'm like, well, how do people know? Well, let's put something in there like a place saver, a private event or something. So it is something that I am actively wanting to happen.
Okay. And without asking for an answer here, Anita, the question was asked earlier. The reason this event does not show up on the calendar is because it took the space vacated by the Futures Club. And what shows up instead is that the Futures Club is canceled for this time. Okay, so that substitution should have taken place.
So, event supplies. What is the next slide here? We've got, talking about, so George, you had submitted a request to talk about event supplies and whatnot. Do you all want to speak to this one at all?
So a couple of things, I'll start off and I'll hand it off to Colin. One thing is we do ask, and I think Boomers is really good at doing this, is normally when they come in to do their facility setup sheet, they will request extra trash cans or extra, depending on their group, if it's a huge event. Please let us know, let Anita know that if there's anything that you foresee maybe needing extra that we don't normally have out. Let her know and we'll get that up to the facility or the maintenance team so that they can ensure we have an adequate amount of trash cans, trash bags, whatever it may be. So that's kind of what this is for. If it gets to a point where you don't realize that your event's going to be this big, and then you, a couple of days before the event, you say, gosh, I've just come in and picked up all my ticket or my request and realized I have about 300 people. Then you want to let Anita know right away. We can get it on the change order form. And then I will turn it over to Colin because there's a couple of ways that you can reach out to the maintenance team on this.
Yes. So in general, if you're needing supplies at a facility, we're always telling you to contact the maintenance team. And so we wanted to share how you can contact the maintenance team, including a new method. And so when you're looking for maintenance team contact information, everyone should just probably program right into their cell phones, if you haven't already, the maintenance team cell phone number. That's 707-328-4619. It receives texts. So if you want to text it, feel free to do that as well. Additionally, there is an email address. There's one that's listed on the contact page. You may have seen it before. We see emails come through every now and then. That's maint, MAINT at oakmontvillage.com. And that's a group email. It goes out to several people. But as of today, we're testing out a new way to contact the maintenance team, and it is a submission form that you can access via oakmontvillage.com/request, or by scanning a QR code currently only available in the Burger Center as we kind of test this out. And when you fill out that form, it will also email the maintenance team, but it assists us by creating, how would you say, a spreadsheet of the events that have been submitted, so that the maintenance team has an easy place to kind of check on these types of requests centrally. It's not necessarily centered in any one person's inbox or a group inbox. It basically takes it into a database, lists it out, and allows us to mark them as complete or open. So a ticketing system, if you will. So without ticket numbers. But oakmontvillage.com/request, and also the QR codes that will take you straight to that page are available in the Burger Center currently, and maybe to expand to more facilities soon. And I guess this is this one's probably more on your topic here. We're talking about more space for clubs. And I know there was a specific location that you were curious about why we may not be able to get more space there. Do you want me to talk to the first slide or two? It's the 2030 graph. So when it comes to space, there was a question submitted to us before this presentation that we wanted to touch on. And that is, why can't the clubs utilize the Sugarloaf or other rooms within the Valley of the Moon Club or the Oak Restaurants facilities, like they may utilize OVA facilities? And this graph seemed rather relevant to us. If you're in any of the Oakmont 2030 groups, you might be familiar with this graph. This is a bar chart that displays the number of events scheduled in our facilities by the time of day, kind of averaged out over the course of a year. And what you'll note is that Oakmont prime time is about 10 a.m. in the morning, peaking at 10 a.m. and kind of going down from there. When we look at this graph, what we recognize is that the space issue in Oakmont is much less a challenge of where your event is and much more a challenge of when your event is. And likewise, the golf club has very similar peak hours, as you might imagine. Their events and the times that people want to attend events at the golf club's facilities are very similar to the times that people want to attend events in the OVA facilities. So this, we have the space, just not necessarily at the times people want them. And likewise for the golf club. That's why it's not necessarily a possible place to kind of transition our events, because they're full at the same times.
And I've reached out to Hillary, and Hillary and I are working together. Anita has also met with her. It is not something that we're opposed to continuing to try to do. But so far, we haven't had any luck. Anytime we've asked her for room or space, they've been booked. So she hasn't been able to help us with that, but we'll continue to work on that with her.
I would just like to comment for those who may have missed it. The Valley of the Moon facilities, including the Oak Restaurant and the East Clubhouse, are currently leased to another corporation. That is how we are funding the golf club. So for those of us who live in fear that the golf club won't make it financially, it's important to remember that the money that they take in there is keeping us from having to support the golf club with more dues. So this, we are under contract to them under a lease. We have no control whatsoever, other than we could, of course, pay them enough money that they would be willing to let us use facilities. They are not our facilities to schedule.
Yes, and to your point, George, that is what Hillary said, is that is their kind, or your guys' bread and butter pretty much, is they rely on that banquet, those banquet rooms and their, those rooms available. We talked to her even about the Sugarloaf building. And so we even talked about maybe utilizing that at some point. It is something we're looking at, but you're right. That's kind of where, what exactly what is happening.
Yeah, this is Mihir Parekh. I made that request earlier in my email, so let me just elaborate on it. I'm quite familiar with this problem. In fact, I held a major event for my 75th birthday out there, and they did a moderate good job. Is it on now?
There you
Okay, a little closer to my mouth. Okay. So anyway, I'm familiar with the problem and I understand it. However, I do know that they have many weekday evenings empty, which is what we could use for some of our clubs, especially clubs like mine that do tasting events. And the other thing is we would like food, which is we can bring food here, but it's much more difficult to get caterers to come here and clean up and all that stuff. They do that for a living out there. So that's an opportunity for them to sell more space, sell food to us, and for our clubs who are in the need to have food and drink to utilize them during weekdays, especially, which is not when they do their weddings and other events. So somehow we need to do some kind of a deal. And one suggestion I will have for you is as follows. We could say, for example, that we could say that, hey, Oakmont is willing to take, say, for example, block, say 30 weekdays or 50 weekdays in a whole year. And for that, we get this kind of a deal. And then we make that information available to the clubs and say, hey, guys, if you book, and many clubs do book weeks or months in advance. I booked the entire year in advance. So I could book a weekday in advance at the Oaks Club, and rather than Easter egg, which is good. Easter egg is very nice. We love it. But Oaks has the benefit of providing food also.
Yeah.
So that's benefit to them and benefit to us if they're willing to. Now, we could also have with that appropriate cancellation. So if people do cancel, then the club is responsible for canceling, and so on. Or scheduling is very important for them and for us. So some kind of a deal can be worked out so their underutilized rooms during the weekdays, evenings, could be made available to Oakmont clubs.
And I will follow up with Hillary on that. In the discussion I had with her, usually, and you may know more than I do or better than I do, they have weekly events, like Taco Tuesday, and they have Fried Chicken Friday. But I think Monday through Friday, they do have a lot of events, is what she had told me. But that was a while back. So I will definitely reach out to her and see what she says on that, because that is a great idea.
If there are, one more question, maybe. Here you go, Katie.
I think this is probably for you, Anita. Is there a system in place that you check to see that clubs actually use the rooms? Like the ones that are repetitive meetings, and they've canceled a meeting. Do you track that at all?
They do schedule reoccurring events with me, and we do it 1 year at a time. We don't do 2 years at a time. They do reach out to me to let me know that they are not going to have, meetings. Matter of fact, I have a club just email me today that they canceled their November and December. So then I go ahead and free that up for whoever may need an event.
I can kind of touch on that. So what happens, and it hasn't happened recently, Maggie, who was our one of our maintenance leads, really dialed this in, and she has since left. And so we're looking at bringing someone back that would do similar to what she did in the admin piece of maintenance. And she would keep track of ever she would go into a room and nobody showed up. She would call Anita and say, hey, did they reach out to you? And then Anita would say no, call them, and she would make note of it. So then we would be able to track it if the same person is scheduling for 10 weeks in a row and they're not utilizing the space. That becomes an issue. So she was doing that, and we do need to start that again, Katie. So yes, that's a great point.
Thank you. And a quick question, Colin, for you. You've got QR codes at the various locations that you can scan for reporting to maintenance. Can you also post a QR code for the Wi-Fi in the various locations so you can just scan it and pop onto the Wi-Fi system?
I will look into that. I'll look into that. I'm not sure, in order for something like that to work, like a QR code is short for quick response code. Generally speaking, what a QR code does is it causes your phone to open up a prompt, right? That you can then select. It is possible to have QR codes, like most QR codes that you scan these days take you to a website, because that's the easiest thing for the phone to prompt. You figure when they're writing the code, whether it's on the Apple X code or the Android, I forget what their coding language is called, they have to write out, scan QR code, this happens. There is some, I know, concerns about QR codes that do more than just share a link, because they can open up security issues potentially if you have a QR code that is installing something or changing the system settings of someone's phone. I don't know if there's any problems there, but I will look into it. I don't know, I guess is the best answer, but I will research it.
It is a great idea because we get tons of calls and people have a hard time connecting. We have started putting up those Wi-Fi password in the back at all the facilities so it's more visible. And Dawn has put actually the OVA guest part as well. But I think that's a wonderful idea if somebody can connect automatically and not have to finagle with their stuff.
As little finagling as possible. And if that is all, I would encourage everyone, if you had any, and I'll come right back to you there, George. If there's any comments, questions, concerns that you have, send them all to Christelle. No, I'm promise. Actually, more emails are going to show up in a second, I think. Here we go. We got to press something. Maybe it's frozen. There we go. So here are email addresses coming up on the screen here. And please do feel free to reach out. We're happy to talk and taking more. Yeah, Charlie, of course.
Thank you. This is not about anything we've discussed here, but I thought someone on the staff or someone in the room might know the answer to this. About 2 years ago, during the pandemic, at the corner of Stonebridge and Oakmont Drive, there were signs about some duplexes that were being proposed to be built there. And I know they were having a hearing on it, and I don't know what happened. Does anyone
yes.
know?
Yes. So those are still at the planning department. And I believe that they will be early 2023, mid 2023, they'll be coming.
The one thing I didn't hear addressed today is the facility requisition form with the diagram on the back. Is that ever going to be available as a fillable PDF? Because as it's set up now, there's always confusion with the mics and the kind of stands you need. It would be nice to get that cleaned up and on the website for requesting a room.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We can have Colin work on that.
People on Zoom can't hear me. Bern, I see that you have your hand raised. I believe that's for a new question. Feel free to ask. You are unmuted, I believe.
I don't mean to be negative, but it's very disconcerting to be Zooming and have the majority of the screen your last post and have a very small portion of my screen to see the three of you. And wonderful.
I was doing that
because
on purpose.
I know that there are people who have difficulty hearing. Fortunately, I'm not one of those, but you do provide for the instant typing of whatever is being said. And when it's in that small screen, you can't see it. So for all of those people, I just want to alert you to that, if you will. Thank you.
Yes, just to touch on that for the people in Zoom more specifically, the live transcriptions that are available that people here in the room are seeing on the projector are enabled for people on Zoom on your end. So and I've written into Zoom about this. Can we have closed captions just start automatically? And I'm arguing with them about that actively. But as it is right now, for people who are at home on Zoom, you have to click live transcript at the bottom of your Zoom window. The reason you all here are seeing it on the screen is because I've clicked it here on the iPad. And we do have instructions for that in the documentation referenced earlier in the presentation. So if you have a meeting where you want to use Zoom rooms and you want to make sure closed captions are available, check out that documentation. And just to address this, because I know it's a topic that some of you, I think I may have heard some murmurings in the audience. The captions in Zoom rooms are smaller. This is a problem. We are very well aware of the problem. And I've written into Zoom about that as well. I've submitted feature requests and complaints, and we're actively pursuing larger captions. Maybe even if it requires a third-party solution. Right now, these are the Zoom captions that are provided by Zoom themselves, but there are some third-party solutions that we may invest in soon to improve the caption quality.
Colin, if you change the direction of the camera and focus on the bottom of the screen, reset your camera.
I don't. What are we working to here?
Because it'll show up there that the captioning will show that.
I might have to have you show me that after the meeting.
Include the bottom of the.
Sure. Jane is going to do some live demoing for us here. Excellent. And I do know that there was another presentation after ours, so I don't want to. Oh, so that people on Zoom can see what I'm talking about. Is that what you're getting around? Oh, got it. So these are the closed captions that I'm referencing to people here on Zoom. And you can enable these on your own computer by clicking live transcript on your Zoom toolbar. That's the same toolbar that has the mute and video icons they would use to turn on and off your video or mute your microphone. All right. Bev? Yeah, excellent. All right, good deal. Thank you all for your time. Not yet. Stay a minute for Bev. It's well worth it.
Doggone it. Hi, I'm Bev, and what I'd like to do is just introduce you to a new committee that is part of Oakmont, and it is the Volunteer Resource Committee. Its purpose is to connect volunteers with clubs, committees that have needs for volunteers. I wanted you to know that that includes every one of you. If you have a need, a special need, let us know. There is a form as you walk out. Please pick it up and use it to let us know if you have a need for volunteers. Either I'm thinking of one club that needs 30 more members. I'm not saying we can always fulfill that, but let us know your needs. Right now, we're pleased, for example, that we get to help with new volunteers approaching the fire brigade, displacement of books for the new installation of carpet. And that's very cool. New members and new residents want to volunteer, and we have a one-time job for them. So just know that the committee is here for you and these forms for you to fill out. Thank you.
It's okay, George? Okay, I have a very short presentation. I'm giving you money. So to all the clubs, I'm here for the Oakmont Community Foundation. If you apply to us for a grant, and if you qualify, we will give you money. It has to be a club or an organization that is recognized by the OVA officially by the board. You have to have a treasurer and a bank account. That said, you also have to meet a few other criteria. What you ask for has to be for everyone in Oakmont. It can't be for anything outside of Oakmont. And it has to be a cultural, educational, or social thrust for what you want to do. In other words, we won't buy paper plates for your party, but we do support things like the caregiver facilitator. We support their program to give rides. We bought a monitor screen for the Learning Center so that people taking the classes could have a closer screen to them. We bought a little device that picks up balls on the lawn bowling course. So things like that. You can find the application for the grant on the Oakmont Community Foundation website. And if you have questions, you can call me, I'm Jackie Ryan, or any of the board members that you see listed there on the website. We'd be glad to help you with that. Any questions? Katie. No, we cannot support anything that the OVA pays for or is responsible for, and we cannot support anything that would go into something that OVA has in their facilities. We can't, for instance, build a new shower room at the pool. But we do have funds available, and clubs have not really been taking advantage of those funds. So I'm hoping that you'll take a look at the site, tell your clubs, and if you've got a need, and people can donate to you and get a tax deductible for that donation, because we are a 501c3. So frequently people will make donations to music at Oakmont, and that's tax deductible for them. And then we pass the money through to Music at Oakmont or to Sunday Symposium. Thank you.
Before I wrap up, I want to congratulate the foundation. During the pandemic period, when the symposium tried to keep going and we still were paying a small honorarium to speakers, they backstopped us for 2.5 years because we obviously did not have people walking into the burger who were contributing to the, it was wonderful. And then for my little genealogy club, for those of you who want to get a European passport, you can come to our meeting on the 28th of the month, which will feature a speaker who will talk about how to get dual citizenship based on your heritage. And she's prepared a presentation that was paid for, thank you, by the Community Foundation, because it 1 o'clock right here. Okay, unless someone else, I want to thank Christelle, Colin, and Anita for having joined us today. And we look forward to February, which will be our next meeting. And I will say that we think it's going to be on communications. Okay, so to be continued. Thank you all.